Okay, in the last demo, we had created some images. We created this sky image. That was our original full image. This is the rear hills, and that is the road layer that is going to go on the very top. And then we have some other files. I'm going to do a little bit of house cleaning, or housekeeping, I should say, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm just going to call working. I'll call it working, like as in working files. I'm going to put and make sure that if you do this, make sure that your PSD file is not still open before you change anything. I'm going to close that because you don't want to ever move a file while it's open. Anyway, so I'm going to put my PSD into working. I'll actually put my original road file in there, and I will put my road full BG file in there. And I'm also going to put this sketch in there as well. And let's just drop that in there also, so that it's a lot cleaner and clearer as to which three files these are. So you can either leave the working images folder there, or you can move it up a directory so that it is in your main root level directory. So in my case, I've got something called highway, and let's just call this, to be really clear, I'll call this A3 as in assignment 3, highway, and I'll call it root so that you understand that this is the root level directory for this particular project, okay? And that'll help us before we start doing our code stuff. So inside of our highway root folder, we currently have images with our 3 images that we're going to need for at least some of those images for the page anyway. And then we've got our working files, which we're not going to be prepared to do something like get rid of them or anything. We just want to keep them separate from our normal images that are going inside the web page. All right, so that's a little bit of housekeeping. Now let's take a look at this in working. Let's take a look at our sketch demo. I want to talk about this again so that we can revisit what we've done so far. So we have basically created some of these transparencies that we needed. If you look down in our thumbnails and you remember that we had the full image, which in this case we decided we only needed the sky portion. All right, so that's going to be the sky portion. And then we also needed to go in the middle, sort of on top of the sky, we needed the transparent rear hills, all right? So we made that. And then on top of that layer is going to be where it's called top mask or something, whatever we call it, that's going to have the roadway. All right, so we've created our layers of images now. And the other thing that we need to do is sort of create like a basic inventory of the tags that we're going to make. And sometimes I like to make little notes before I start getting into my coding. So for instance, here we've got an H1, we've got our title, and then we've got this section. So I'll actually call it a section, and it's got all the stanzas, so maybe I'll give it an ID of called stanzas. And then because you'll notice that in my design, I have the stanzas kind of staggered with different margins. So I'm probably going to give each one an ID. So the first one would be called 1, the second one would be called 2, and the third one would be called 3, right? But just remember that you can't start a class name or an ID name with an actual number. So I'm going to spell the words out. So it'll be ONE, TWO, and the word 3. And then you'll also notice that down here we've got our H2. So we need to also think about having like maybe a footer or something that has an H2 in it. All right, so let's look at a quick inventory. I went ahead and I got started so you don't have to watch me type everything. So this is just like some basic notes, and it doesn't really account yet for how we're going to insert the images, but let's just get some of the basic stuff put into our page, and then we can go from there. So if you look at this, we need to add a link to our fonts, and we also need to then add our style sheet link and create our style sheet. And then down in the body area, what we're going to need is a header tag with an H1 that's going to have the poem title in it. And then we said just a second ago that we'll have a section tag, and then we'll give it an ID of stanzas. And inside of that, that's how you can see that these are inside, is that it has the ellipses, right, that nested. We have 3 paragraphs. Each has an ID of 1, 2, and 3, respectively. And then after that, we have a footer. tag that's going to have our H2 inside of it. And inside of that H2, we also need an anchor link that links to the author, links to the author's bio. Okay, so let's get started just by creating that stuff in our HTML. Okay, so I decided to go ahead and open up Komodo Edit, and you'll see here I have my projects are empty, so I'm going to create a new project. We'll say new project, and I'm going to locate where it is, and just jump there. Okay, and so I navigated to the correct place in my file system, and I found my A3 highway route folder that I discussed before. I'm going to give this project a project name. This is just my Komodo project file, and we'll just call it A3 highway. All right, and why not just call it highway route so it matches the folder name. All right, and so I'll go ahead and I'm going to choose this folder, right, so that that's the folder that's chosen, and we'll click save. And so now I've got my highway route, and then you'll notice that it went ahead and up here it's showing me my files that are in that project folder. So I've got working and we've got images. So I need to create a new file from template. So you can either do it from here on the screen. If you're on PC, then you'll have to go up to the hamburger menu. All right, so let me just move this over. I'm going to create my new file from a template. Make sure you're in web. We're going to choose HTML5. I'll give it a name called index.html. Okay, and then it should be saving in the correct location because we created that as a project. So I'll click open, and then I'll just call this, let's just call it illustrated poem for right now. And I'll save that. And we also need to create a style sheet as well. So I'll say file, and then I can go new from template. And this time, instead of HTML, I'm going to create CSS, and we're going to call it, I'll call mine styles.css. You can call it whatever you want. All right, styles.css, and click on open. All right, and now I just need to link the two. So up in my head here, after my title, I'm going to leave a little spot for my Google Fonts on line 6, and on line 7 is where I'm going to go ahead and start to make my link for my style sheet. So we'll say link href equals, and then we need to find that file, and it would be styles.css. And if you're not sure, you can look over here and see what the path should be. Because we're in index, we link directly to styles. It's in the same directory, so we can just call out the name of the file. And then we need to put the relationship with rel attribute and tell it to be a style sheet relationship. Okay, and then you can end that tag. All right, so now that we've got the style sheet, we could wait for the fonts. In just a minute, we can add that, but let's just go ahead for now. And in the body, let's go ahead and we're going to make the framework. So if you wanted to look at our little guideline here, we decided that we're going to have, I'm just going to actually copy this for a moment. I'm just going to copy it right here, and I'm just so I don't have to keep referring back and forth. I'm just going to paste it there. It's not proper HTML at all. So I can just go here and I'll wrap a header tag. Aha, look at that. And then I can say, oh, well, there was an H1 that was supposed to go there. So we'll go inside of that and we'll put that there was an H1. And then for right now, we'll just say poem title, and we'll replace that later. And then next, we decided that we had a section called whose ID was called stanzas. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll just call section, and we'll say ID equals like that. It's easy enough, right? And then we have our ending section. And then inside of that, we can do our paragraph tags. These I'm just going to type out. So we'll do paragraph, and then I'll say ID equals. And then I'm just going to let's just get rid of this. I'm going to copy these. Copy. Actually, let's do it like this. Let's go ahead and enter it like that. I'll copy this, and then I'm going to paste each one. And then I can go in and I can put the names 1, 2, 3. Oops. This is why sometimes it's nice to kind of do like a little inventory, because it makes the code part a lot faster. And then we decided that we wanted a footer. All right, so I'll just wrap that in a tag, and we'll put the h2 inside of it. So it has our h2. And then inside of that, we had said that we wanted an anchor link, and we'll say href equals. And for now, we'll just put an empty href, and we're going to put author name. And we can go back in and we can fill this information in later. Okay. All right. So I'm going to save this, and we have a basic structure. And now we just need to fill in with the poem information, right? So if you go back to our website, we can look at the poem, and it's called Slow Dancing on the Highway, the Trip North. I'll copy that. And let's, oops, didn't mean to do that. Let's jump back over here, and where it says poem title, let's just put that right there. And there needs to be a space right there. There's not a space. And then I can jump back again, and then I'm gonna copy each stanza and paste it right in. And the thing you need to be careful about, in fact, I'm gonna show you a little trick, is if there are quotation marks, you're probably gonna get weird special characters. So what I'm gonna do is copy this whole thing actually, and I'm gonna go into something like text edit. If you're on Windows, you can go to Notepad, but for here, I'm gonna just make a new file. And then if I go up to format and I say make plain text, this is true text, and if I paste it, it won't actually allow me to keep any of those true quotation marks. It'll convert them into inch and foot marks, which is exactly what I want. So I'm going to copy each stanza now, and I'm going to jump back in and paste the stanza information. Okay. Oops. That was an accident. There we go. And I'm going to tab it in so that it is easy to see. And don't forget, you'll need to put break tags at the end of each line because you want them to do just a single line break, right? And you don't need one at the end on the last stanza line because it ends with a paragraph tag. And then let's jump back over here again. I will copy the next stanza, paste it. You can see how this is going to go, right? Pretty straightforward. And I'll put my break tag, BR tag, and then finally let's do that last stanza, copy that over and paste it, and once again let's tab all that in and put our break tags in. And I'm just going to copy this break tag and paste it at the end of these lines, and I'm going to save it. Okay, so now you actually have something that you could honestly just look at in a regular page. Where the author name is, I actually need to go ahead and grab that as well. So let's go back and grab her name. And I don't want it to be all caps, but I do want to copy this link address. So where it's going to go to her name, I can right click it and say copy link address. Her name is Elizabeth Hobbs, so I'll just type that in because I don't want it to be all caps necessarily. So Elizabeth Hobbs, make sure you spell it right. And then for the link address, I'm going to paste that address. And then the other thing is I want to open it in a new window, so I'll put space, and then I'll use the target attribute, and we'll say to open it in a new window. Okay, let's save that, and we can test it. So I'll go up here to preview, and I'll test it in Chrome or something. I'll tell it to remember my selection, and perfect. It looks simple and plain, and it's formatted right. And we've got our proper semantic HTML. And so now we just need, in our next demonstration video, to see how I would go about, thinking about layering those images on.